Classic Restos is proudly brought to you by Shannons Insurance, where you can be a member of the Shannons Club. Pace Farm, the enjoyable egg. Hare and Forbes Machinery House. And Gun Lake Quarries. And today I bring you to picturesque Yass, New South Wales, where you're about to see three classic cars and their owners in this week's episode of Classic Restos on the Road. Before we take in some classics, the Yas Valley, New South Wales should be definitely on your destination list. One aspect of visiting the Yas Valley is that it encompasses many beautiful surrounding regions ready and waiting to be explored. Treat yourself to some truly stunning scenery and delightful country villages and towns that are ripe for sightseeing. Of course, there's the town of Yass itself, and you can also explore the villages stretching from Gundaroo to Murrumbateman and Binalong to Wee Jasper, soaking up everything in between. Reflecting the region's cool climate grapes, Yas Valley is home to more than 30 wineries, so the thought of Shiraz and Riesling, then mixing it with great company, is never too far away. Yas Valley is adorned by its historic towns. There's the bustling arts scene, and rustic restaurants make it the perfect place to reconnect with friends and family while enjoying long, languid days filled with great food and wine. Indeed, the Yas Valley, New South Wales has something for everyone. For more information, visit yasvalley.com.au. Now, strap yourself in for this week's episode. Well, first cab off the rank. How you doing this morning, Cole?
Very well, thanks, Fletch.
That's good. Thank you for coming along to Banjo Patterson Park here in Yass.
Yeah, it's a great place. It's a lovely little park.
Mate, thank you very much for coming along today. We've got a 1976 VK Charger here, something that it's your own recipe in terms of paint. I see remnants of originality with the interior, first of all. I like how you've kept the seats.
Yeah, that was a real bonus. I thought I'd have to redo the interior, but with a bit of gumption and a bit of elbow grease, it came up looking like that. So it's really, really pleasing because I've tried to keep as much original as I could. Yeah. And then things I had to change, as I said, use my own recipe. I sort of built the car that I would like to have, that I'd have been able to sit down in 1976 and tick that. That's the sort of car I went for.
I think it's great that we see a VK. They don't come along that often. And also, too, available in the 360 V8 still on this time for 1976. But here, the Hemi, give us a rundown there.
Yeah, when I first got the car, it was on gas. It had been running on gas for many years. I was looking at going like an LA, like a 360. But then so many other people I talked to said, no, keep the motor. So we pulled her out and got it checked out. And because it came up so good, we thought, no, we'll keep that and go the other way and put the triple Webers and a mild cam in it and go that way. And I'm really pleased I've done that because I've got a nice pacemaker extractors modified and a nice exhaust system. And driving down the highway, windows down, wind blowing in your hair, hearing that Hemi, it's magic.
That's a beautiful vitamin C colour here today. Has it always been that colour?
No, it was a mist green, like a metallic green colour from original. It was a 770, had the black quarter vent, and I was able to source the fins, so that was very pleasing. But the car also had all the trims, had the side body trims, the mouldings, and unfortunately the previous owner must have had a problem with that falling off because they'd gone along with self-tappers about every 4 inches and just drilled a self-tapper in, and that's where all the water got in and all the rust problems got subsequently, Over 100 different spots of rust in the car. All the boot was all gone. So it was...
But isn't it good that you persevered, though?
Yeah, well, once you get the car and you sort of get attached to it, because I'd always been looking out for a Charger, so once you finally got one, it sort of becomes part of the family and you just do what it takes.
It's amazing we put ourselves through restoring a vehicle. We would never have done this many years ago when the car was a lot newer. These cars got traded in and sold if they had a a leaky radiator or a slipping clutch. And if they had rust, people definitely got rid of them. But now, if we buy a classic car and it's got some rust, well, hey, it's no big deal. We just fix it.
Yeah.
Now, you say it was a green car. Is there anything left on the car at all that is slightly green?
Yes, I did keep a little tiny memento just so I'll always remember what the car looked like. Yeah, just under the bonnet stops. Yep. I've kept the original green paint just on the head of the screws in that, just as a little reminder each time I open the bonnet of what colour it was.
It's a nice touch. You've done things nicely. You've changed it from the original code, but you've done it well. Now, just quickly, the wheels. I like that too. It's almost like a bit of a stealthy look, a bit of a tougher look. You've kept those wheels plain, no chrome. I like what you've done there.
I did that as the first step because they are the original wheels. Got them sandblasted and powder coated, and I got the little white wall tyres put on. But I do like the jelly beans. Eventually I will put some 15-inch jelly beans on with a lot wider to fill out those rear guards, because that'll give it that sort of... I'll keep both sets and I'll be able to change between one look and the other.
Colin, I want to thank you for coming here to Banjo Patterson Park here in Yass today. As I said earlier, VKs don't come along all that often. I like what you've done. I love the colour, like the wheels, the interior. The engine bay is superb. It's an absolute credit to you. That Hemi 6 really does look fantastic sitting there. So well done on that one, mate. Good on you, Col.
Yeah, it's been a pleasure, and thanks, Fletch. I'm a proud member of the Yass Antique Motor Club. We're quite a small club here in Yass and the surrounding region. We've got about 40 odd members, and we've been going for 41 years, which I believe would be one of the older motor clubs in Australia. What this car means to me is, I think it's my youth revisited. I think it's, as you get older, into your 40s and your 50s, you remember those old days of cruising around in cars, and that's what this car means to me. My uncles had Valiants. One had a Pacer. The other one had a Regal, a VF, I think it was, looking back at it. And I've always loved the Mopars. Mind you, we call them just Valiants. Another feature is, and part of my personality is, back in 1976 I lost my tooth, and that is the same year that this car was made. So it's got a connection there that I really do enjoy. Each time I drive it, the years wind back, got the window down, the wind blowing in my hair, people going, "Hey Charger," as you drive past. It's just unbeatable. I just get goosebumps and just feel so good.
I spend a lot of time out here. The RT Charger's the real deal. An E49. Remember A Charger? I've always got projects on the go, so Shannon's laid-up cover helps protect my restorations. I'm Mopar through and through. It's a passion Shannons understands. I wouldn't insure my cars and bikes with anyone else.
Shannons, insurance for motoring enthusiasts. Call 13 46 46 for a quote.
Hare and Forbes Machinery House has been family owned and operated for over 85 years, and it's easy to see why. Planning on welding? Look at these welding tables and clamps, air compressors and different air tools, sandblasting cabinets, through to spray guns. Everyone is welcome at Machinery House. There are competitive freight rates around Australia, and you can buy online at machineryhouse.com.au. So remember, Hare and Forbes has the range. Next contestant on today's show, we have Greg Snape. How are you, Greg?
I'm really well, thanks, Fletch. How are you today?
Great, shocking location. How do you put up with this?
Oh, you get used to it. Yeah, the flies and the dust are a bit bad sometimes, but it's okay today.
There's just nothing but scenery.
Living the dream, we call it, mate.
Gorgeous view of Burrinjuck Dam. How long have you lived here?
About 18 years we've been here, Fletch. Yeah, so we came back from the UK and decided we didn't want to live in the desert anymore, so this looked like a nice place to be.
He's been here for 18 years. We're only a couple of hours up the road. I'm shocked I haven't heard from you.
Well, I try and keep a low profile.
You've got a fantastic spot here. The shed looks brilliant. You've got some toys in there. I appreciate you inviting us here today to show us a little bit of what you've got. But where do cars go back with you?
Oh, I was brought up with cars. My dad, he was a motor mechanic by trade. And of course I did the same thing. I became a mechanic. I was actually apprenticed to Dad. So I've just grown up with cars. And when I was about 14, Dad bought his first race car, and I think that was just an age that, that really soaked in, and I've just loved race cars and fast cars ever since.
Well, I'm eager to get in there. There's a high-pitched roof there staring at us. I know you've got some stuff in there, so what do you say?
We'll go and look at some toys, shall we?
Let's go, mate.
Thanks, Fletch.
Greg, it's a home away from home in here.
Well, this is a little toy shop, mate. It's where we keep the toys, yeah. And you've got to have some toys to play with, haven't you?
Absolutely. Love the high ceiling. Not too hot in here either. That's good.
No, it's got nice insulation in the ceiling. We've built it out of a bit of Hebel blocks, so yeah.
About to say, you can't beat corrugated iron for insulation.
Yeah, as long as you put 6 inches of insulation between two sheets.
Especially in the middle of summer, yeah. Greg, in front of us here, 1957 Cooper Bmw, right?
That's right. This car was first run on the 9th of June by a bloke called Jim Madsen. And Jim Madsen bought the Cooper. It was actually 1956 build frame. He bought the frame and he installed a BMW engine in the back of it with a supercharger on it. As far as we know, it's the only Cooper in the world to have a supercharged BMW engine put in it.
My observations, when I look at this car, first of all, the transverse leaf springs for a start, chrome plated as well. You're getting a little bit flash there, Greg.
Well, these were upmarket by the time. See, Cooper started building cars in the late 40s, so after the war. They started building them with 500 Fiat parts, which of course had transverse leaf suspension. So the early Cooper...
I think that's all Fiat had was 500 parts.
So they started off, they built their own chassis, they used the Fiat suspensions, and the Coopers sort of grew from there.
The supercharger in the back, that is incredible. That little hairdryer, how that just mounts on top there. It almost looks like a Burt Munro project.
Well, that blower is actually a cabin blower off a Spitfire. So, back in the 50s, you could buy them at an ex-army surplus shop type of thing. They weren't that expensive.
Now, this is interesting too. I'm looking at a fuel pump hanging off the back here, and there's a cable going down to the fuel pump. What's going on there, Greg?
Well, the fuel pump...
I know a fuel pump runs off a can, but it's the first time I've seen a cable off a push bike go down to a fuel pump.
Well, the fuel pump is actually driven on a cam on the rear axle. And of course, while you're sitting on the start line waiting for the race to start, you're not pumping any fuel. So you've got to actually pump the fuel by hand while you're sitting stationary. Once you're away and going, you don't have to worry about it.
That's amazing. So how long have you had it, Greg?
My old man bought this car when I was 14, so it's been in the family a long time.
A cool thing to have in your family. You've obviously taken it around Wakefield Park, New South Wales quite a bit.
Well, my kids are doing it now, so...
How cool is that? Brake drums, part of the wheel. That's
Yes.
it. That's interesting.
Yeah, the Cooper, they're a magnesium wheel, which were cast specially by Cooper, and they have the brake drum integral with the wheel casting. So it was just a way of saving weight, and that's why there were, such a top-class car in their day. Anyway, Fletch, we better have a look at this Cooper S, and because that's where they went from there to here.
I love your attention to detail. It's easy to see that you're doing a full resto here. There won't be any GoPro camera on this one today.
Not unless we push it a lot.
All right, what's the history on this one, Greg?
Look, I bought this, it's probably about 15 years ago now, but it was in a hell of a mess. A guy had to get it off his front yard really quick because his wife was going crook, so I paid $100 for a genuine Cooper S. But, so it was a big job, and the guy I got it from, he'd robbed all the Cooper S bits off it, so all the disc brakes and the twin tanks and all that sort of stuff. Yeah. So I spent years on eBay just sort of gathering up all the bits and pieces that were missing.
You know when you're close, when you turn up to a resto and you see the floor carpets in place. That's a good sign. It's kind of like almost it's easy from that point onwards.
Well, that's what I'm hoping anyway, yeah.
We could stay here for the rest of the day and possibly into the next day and probably carry through to the end of the week. But we've ran out of time. I want to thank you so much for the invitation here. Great location, incredible shed in a great spot. You've got some good toys here. Got the old Hupmobile over the back there. That's got to be a story for another day. But just real quick, what's the year on that?
That's a 1914. It's really interesting. The car belongs to a guy over in Canberra. I've just been doing a bit of work for him. But yeah, the car, it was only 2 years old, so it got put away in a hay shed. The guy was going away to war and he stacked it, covered it all over in hay to protect it while he was away. Unfortunately, he didn't come back, and the car wasn't found until the 60s. So there's so much original stuff still on that car. It's just like a real time warp. Yeah.
I mean, we know that barn find now has been done to death, although I still think it's pretty cool. It's appropriate and it's the truth, and that really is one.
It is
to be found literally with hay around it.
Yeah. Yeah, no, it's amazing. And, you know, to see a car that's over 100 years old, still got most of its original paint on it, it's just incredible.
Oh, vehicles, doesn't matter what it is. It could be an old plough, a tractor, a bike, a truck, a car. There's so much legacy when it goes back to tying in with family history like that. Yeah. And that's very emotional about a man that went to war and never came back, and that was his car. It's kind of,
It's funny.
Gives you shivers.
You get that feeling now and again that, his ghost is still with it, actually. Yeah.
All right. On that note, Greg, thank you once again, mate, for having us here.
That's a pleasure.
You make good coffee, and that in itself is one reason why I'll be back.
Good on you, Fletch. All right. Be good.
Thanks, Greg.
Bye, mate.
Cheers.
What does my shed mean to me? That's an interesting question, Fletch. I guess it's the place to come to do the things that you want to do instead of all the stuff that everybody else wants you to do. So, you know, like, it's like particularly when you're working on your own things. I do a few customer cars, but you're always sort of thinking about the time it's taking you to do it. But when you work on your own stuff, it doesn't matter if it takes you 3 hours to polish that bolt and get it just right. You can just do it the way that you want it. I probably come in here every day at some stage during the day to get something, even if it's just to grab a screwdriver to do something inside or whatever. But, you know, when you're in here working, you know, I normally don't get over here till about 9 o'clock, but sometimes you don't sort of knock off until 8 o'clock at night too. So it just depends what you get engrossed in. Well, that's about my shed. You've seen my toys, and it's been fantastic fun showing them to you, Fletch, and I hope you've enjoyed it as much as I have. Thanks, mate.
When I was a kid, I loved cars.
I've been a motoring enthusiast all my life.
My life is hot rods, designing them, building them, and racing.
Hand-built with a stainless steel roof.
It won the Monte Carlo Rally 4 times.
Like Dad, I've always been a Ford man.
In '71, this was the fastest four-door car in the world.
Insurance? Shannons, of course.
And if you own a classic, it just has to be insured with Shannons. Why not pick up the phone and give Shannons a call for a quote and a chat on 134646 to see what policy and premium suits you best. And keep in mind too that the Shannons Club awaits you. They have their own in-house productions, such as Shannons Club TV, Legends of Motorsport, Driven, End of an Era, and of course classic Restos can be seen there as well, as Australia's largest automotive online hub. For more information, visit shannons.com.au. Welcome back. Location number 3 on today's show. Still in the Yas Valley, on a property just out of town, where a couple by the name of Kerry and Ruth absolutely adore their country lifestyle. Meet Kerry, born in 1943 and an ex-farmer. Kerry enjoys an even quieter pace of life nowadays, and of course his shed. He spends a lot of time in here, and his passion for cars goes back a long way. One crown jewel in his fleet is a 1949 Singer. It's a pleasure to be here this afternoon. How are you, Kerry?
I'm good, thanks, Fletch. Yes, great to have you here.
Thank you so much. I love your shed.
Yeah, it's a big toy shop, but yeah, it gets messy, but I enjoy it.
I like that, a toy shop. A toy shop. You can just never have too many toys,
No,
can you?
you can't, no. Unfortunately, they breed on you. You have one and you think, oh, I might have another one, and then somebody comes up with another plan. You think, yeah, I might have that one too. So.
Now, what we have here is something a little different, a 1949 Singer. I find these little cars interesting. They were built from 1939 to 1955, correct?
That's correct, yes. And they were one of the very early motors with an overhead camshaft, which is quite unusual in their day.
I noticed when you started yours, you've fitted an electric fuel pump, which is probably not a bad idea.
Yes, well, I got sick of pumping the old hand primer up every time, reaching down underneath the grease and trying to pull it up. And I thought, I know what.
It was Britain's attempt to have a red-hot go in this era for a sports car. James Young was the builder, Coventry in England, and there was 12,700 of these made.
Oh, was it that many? I didn't realise there was that many of them made.
This could be the last one left, you just never know.
That'd be great.
So where do you go back with the Singer? What inspired you to get one of these?
What inspired me, I went to a client's clearance sale, and he had this thing in many pieces there, and he'd been going to do it up because he used to own one of them, and he was a young fella. And I thought, no, I don't want that. And then I got thinking about it during the day. I thought, I used to admire a little Singer that used to stand out in front of the local plumbing shop as I was a kid going to school on the bus. And I thought, yeah, maybe I'll have a go at that. Yeah. So it led from there. Yeah. Mate brought it home in a trailer for me, and slowly over the years it all happened.
So what powers it up front, Kerry?
It's a 1200cc overhead cam motor, which was quite unusual at the time. Likes to rev. Yep.
It's a nice style. It's got a pretty cool bonnet, nice nose out front. The interior looks good. Probably one of the better interiors from this era of car. Nice shape along the dashboard. Everything seems fairly ergonomically placed as well, if you could say that for a 1949 car.
Well, I think so, Fletch. It's when you start looking at the cars of that era, the upholstery ran right around the whole car, in the doors and everywhere, and as you say, the dashboard is quite a modern-looking one by those standards in those days.
The old girl, she was a bit of a mess once, wasn't she?
Yeah, she'd sat underneath a pine tree with all her innards pulled out for quite a few years. So when I gathered it up, it was a ute, a load of rubbish on the back of the ute and a trailer for the car itself. And then I come home and thought, now, where do I start?
Kerry, I want to thank you and your wife Ruth putting a beautiful lunch on for us today down there at the old shack. That looks like, that was built back in the 1840s or something. What an incredible ambience sitting in there. And that's how we used to live once upon a time. You'd have a family in there.
That's right, Fletch. And sometimes it's nice just to go down there and sit there, particularly if it's raining heavily or the wind's blowing and howling through the cracks and things, and you think, well, a lot of old people live through these eras.
Okay, Kerry, again, thank you very much, and keep up the dream of keeping your passion alive with these cars. I think it's very cool. It's wonderful that you're doing that. It's a real credit to you that you've got your shed in a workspace area, and it's a home away from home. Although home is only like 30 metres over there, you've got the best of everything here. Well done, eh?
I do, Fletch. I really think we've got it pretty right.
Good on you.
Okay, thank you. I don't think I've ever had such a challenge on a motor vehicle or on anything before, because when I stripped it down just to the chassis so I could start again, it was absolutely covered in oil and grease and thick mud that had built up over the years, and it took a lot of scraping before you could even see the chassis. And then, of course, one thing goes into the other, and you start putting some of the components back in, and done the gearbox and put it back, and then had the motor bored out and fitted it all back up myself. And the first time you start it up, which was started up on a stand, not in the car, just to make sure that it was going to behave itself, it's a real sense of achievement. And then, of course, once you get that part going, you think, I've got to get the panels on them, get the panels to make it look like a car again. So, being an old timber frame, there was a lot of work in the timber. I had a bit of help from some companies and a mate of mine who helped me with some of the timber work. And then you start putting the cladding on, and it starts to look like a motor car, and then you get very keen and you start rubbing down the bodywork so you can put some preparation on the paint, and yeah, it's quite a thrill really. Just like to mention the support that I got from my wife over the progress of all these old motor cars I've restored has been really great. I've never had a cross word about it. If you want to do it, you go ahead and do it. And I think that makes it so much easier. Well, how does it feel to drive the car? It's a very satisfying feeling to be driving down the road in something that you've built back up from nothing. The wind blowing through your hair and cars singing along. Not like a modern car, of course. There's a lot more noise and a lot more to do. Keeping your gear speeds right and changing gears, getting them to go into gear. But yeah, it's very satisfying.
Well, I hope you've really enjoyed this week's episode of Classic Restos, filmed in the beautiful Yas Valley of New South Wales, comprising Cole with his VK Charger, then Glenn, his amazing view, and his Coopers. Then rounding off today's show with Kerry and Ruth with their singer. I hope you've enjoyed the show. Until next week, no matter where you're watching Classic Restos from, please ride and drive safe. I'm Fletch, and I thank you very much for watching. You can like and follow us on Facebook at facebook.com/ClassicRestosTV and watch catch-up episodes at shannons.com.au. Classic Restos is proudly brought to you by Shannons Insurance, where you can be a member of the Shannons Club. Pace Farm, the enjoyable egg. Hare and Forbes Machinery House. And Gun Lake Quarries.